Hi, my name is Joshua Thane. I'm going to be talking about working with deaf culture in the workplace and how we can make businesses more deaf friendly. My wife was a deaf studies major at UVU, and she has taught me a lot about deaf culture. I've come to realize that I knew very little about the culture, and I think that's the case for most people. It's important that we learn more about it so that we can work more effectively with those within this culture. Although the deaf and hard of hearing in the United States are from our country, meaning they're not foreign, they still have their own community and culture. The deaf community bonds together over shared experiences and, more than anything, shared language. The deaf in the United States use American Sign Language, a language that isn't spoken but is signed. This language allows them to fully communicate despite the fact that they can't hear. When a deaf person interacts with a hearing person, they preferably use an interpreter. But if that is not an option, they can use gestures, pen and paper, or text. This language divide between the deaf and hearing community makes it difficult for the deaf to participate in most average businesses and companies. As I mentioned, it is difficult for the deaf to take advantage of businesses the same way the hearing community does. For example, think about a fast food restaurant. Most hearing people take it for granted that they can use a drive-through when they are running short on time or just want to eat their food at home. A drive-through doesn't work for a deaf person because they cannot hear the worker and in most cases can't talk back. This is just one example of a business that is not catered to work well with the deaf community. On the other hand, some companies and businesses go out of their way to accommodate the deaf. One example of this would be a movie theater, where they have open caption nights and always have closed captioning available for the deaf. My favorite example of a business that is changing their business plan to better work with those involved in deaf culture is Starbucks. Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. is the only university for the deaf and hard of hearing. All classes and everything on campus is done in American Sign Language. Deaf from all over the country move here for college and many others move here for jobs. Because of this, there is a very large deaf community in Washington, D.C., especially near the campus. Starbucks, who has many deaf customers, wanted to work better with this culture and chose to open a signing store. They will only hire deaf workers and hearing workers that know ASL. This will allow the business to be both accessible to the deaf and hearing communities near Gallaudet. This is an innovative idea, and beyond helping the deaf community, it is helping Starbucks as they are seen as innovators, and this story is shared over and over again on the news. If I were to start my own business one day, I would want to do everything I could to make it deaf friendly. Depending on the type of business I owned, I would do different things to make it efficiently work with the deaf culture. If it were a restaurant, I would want to have someone always working that knows American Sign Language and communicate with the deaf. If it were a fast food restaurant, I would try to have a touch screen at the drive-thru, something similar to Sonic Drive-In. If it were a different type of company, I would want to allow the deaf to always have access to an interpreter or captioning or whatever it is that my company would need to accommodate this culture. It is important that we learn more about different cultures, and in this instance the deaf culture, so we can know how to effectively work with them in the business environment.